As a professional oil painter who specializes in portraits, one of the most common questions I get asked is about capturing realistic skin tones when painting in oil. In some ways, I think this is kind of silly because skin tones are just like any other colors. The process for determining them is the same as it is for anything else, whether it's the color of a tree in a landscape or a petal of a flower that you're painting. There is nothing inherently more tricky about skin tones or more elusive than any other color you may try to capture. Similarly, the process for painting skin tones is the same as the process for matching any other colors in your painting. But on the other hand, this painting is emblematic of why I think painting skin tones can be so hard. So I wanted to talk about some of the most common questions I get asked about skin tones and how you can best tackle painting realistic skin. The reason I found this particular painting challenging and why I think skin tones in general can become difficult for people is that in certain lighting conditions, our skin tones can be really, really neutral to the point of looking like a dark, muddy brown, even on a fair-skinned person. As painters, our brains resist this. We don't want to paint porcelain skin as being a dark brown, or even in some cases, a muddy green or gray. Especially if you're painting a subject outdoors or in shadow, all sorts of light can bounce in and skew the local color of a face so far that it would be unrecognizable out of context. And while this particular demonstration focuses on someone with fair skin, I find this particularly true when painting someone with a deeper skin tone. I'll need to do a more in-depth video on this particular subject in the future as a follow-up to this one. But what I want to say here is that one of the really cool features of deeper skin tones is that they often reflect really gorgeous blues and purples in the highlights. This is unique to that kind of skin, and I think it's something that's really commonly overlooked, especially if as a painter you're used to painting someone with very porcelain skin. On the flip side, one reason that people additionally find skin so challenging is kind of the opposite scenario, where there's so many vibrant colors coming out in the skin, whether it's something reflected from the model's shirt, or maybe they're outside and there's, green from the grass bouncing up into them. Or perhaps they just have skin that naturally reflects certain colors. This can really trip people up, and I think one of the most common flaws is people not acknowledging that sometimes really bright colors can exist when painting a portrait or a figure. But as it relates to this painting, I found that the closer a color is to neutral in terms of skin tone, the more challenging it is for me to match. Now, if I'm painting a still life with a lot of vibrant flowers, it's going to be pretty simple for me to pull out, say, a cad lemon or a cad red. When I see those colors, as I look at my reference, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's almost the color that comes straight out of the tube. But the more colors I would need to mix to match a color, the more tricky it becomes. Moreover, I find myself wanting other colors for context before I dive into that tricky area. That's why I wanted to talk about this with this particular painting. In this case, my subject was almost entirely in shadow, but there was still a lot of variation in the color of his face. Areas with reds, greens, you name it. But it was never pure color or anything even close. The first thing I did to make the colors work in this painting was to focus on big areas. I'm not going in immediately with tiny patches of nuance. I'm trying to take the average color, block that in. I'm doing a lot of squinting, comparing, and putting down the color without concern for whether it seems right intellectually. This is just about getting in the big ideas because we can go in and add that nuance back later on. From here, you'll see I don't really deviate too much from this idea. I come in and adjust the value of a few large areas, but my block-in served me well enough that I'm largely just going in with smaller shapes of more specific color rather than retreading old ground. So as you work on your own figurative or portrait painting, make sure you're thinking of skin the same way you would to match any other color. Remember that skin isn't just shades of beige or brown. There can be vibrant areas throughout, particularly in places with a lot of blood vessels very close to the surface of the skin, like the lips, obviously, but also the cheeks, nose, and ears. And if you're painting a subject in tricky lighting, use the surrounding colors to your advantage. If the skin tone is so far removed from the local color, that is the color of the skin under totally neutral light, that you can no longer trust your instincts, focus on putting down surrounding colors that you're more confident about first, and then use this context to your advantage when you're ready to paint the skin later. And if you're curious about any of the supplies that I used to make this painting, I've put guides down in the description box below, so check those out if you are curious. I hope this video has been really helpful if you struggle with skin tones. I want to hear more about your challenges, though, when it comes to painting portraits. What do you find most difficult? Let me know in the comments below so I can keep it in mind for future video. And make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when I answer your question. Thanks for watching.